See everybody tonight. Thank you for coming out, and those of you who are joining us online, we appreciate you joining us. Hopefully everybody's having a good week so far and preparing for the rain that's coming this weekend. As much as we don't really want to look forward to that, I guess someone needs rain. But we're in the book of Acts again. Someone asked me tonight how much longer we will be in the book of Acts. So I'm thinking probably another 7 weeks that we will study the book of Acts before we finally wrap it up. And so we're getting closer to the end of it. And as we kind of get to that point where the book of Acts winds up to a close, we see that the conflict between the Jews who believe in Jesus' resurrection and messiahship and those who reject it building to like this, head-on collision. So this is what is starting to happen here. After his first attempt to persuade the crowds when Paul was trying to communicate to the crowds went south, Paul was transferred under the Roman guard to the governor of the region, Felix. And that's what we talked about at the end of chapter 23. It is here that the passage under consideration begins as the Jews once again bring charges against Paul, and he once again defends himself. His defense this time is one that has implications for us all, because he is defending his hope, or the hope of the resurrection. And basically that's what he will be doing now till the end of the book of Acts. It will really focus on that thought, the hope of the resurrection, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. All right, so we're going to look first of all at the Jewish prosecutors. We look at the first 9 verses of Acts chapter 24, and they bring on their chief kind of prosecutor, Tertullus, who will be doing the kind of bringing the accusations against Brother Paul. Let's go ahead and begin reading verse 1 through 9. It says, "Now after 5 days, Ananias the high priest came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. These gave evidence to the governor against Paul. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, Seeing that through you we enjoy great peace, and prosperity is being brought to this nation by your foresight, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Nevertheless, not to be tedious to you any further, I beg you to hear, by your courtesy, a few words from us. For we have found this man a plague, creator of dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him and wanted to judge him according to our law. But the commander Lysias came by and with great violence took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. By examining him yourself, you may ascertain all these things of which we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, maintaining that these things were so." All right, so that's the kind of the bird's eye view, kind of looking at the outside, looking in, if we're sitting there like a fly on the wall, listening to this accusation against Paul in this kind of court of law, I guess, setting, because you got a governor who is going to make a ruling over Paul, and he is a privilege to have that, has that right to have this trial. And so this governor is now hearing the accusations brought by the Jews against Paul. And so this orator, Tertullus, this spokesperson, is well spoken. I mean, you can listen to his tone. He could tell he's used to talking to dignitaries. He's used to talking to people and making, smoozing people, right? He's used to kind of making people feel good about themselves, because he kind of really just tells the guy, we're so well off because of you. It's all because of you. You do such a great job governing us. Let me tell you what. If you read the history of this time period, you'll find out the Jews didn't like the Romans. Okay? Romans didn't like the Jews. They didn't like one another. They were in a relationship where they tolerated one another. The Romans used the Jews for what they could get out of them, for what they could, but they also didn't want to cause much of a uproar against them because there was a lot of them. They were just wanting to keep the peace, and as long as the tax money was coming in, everybody was happy. It's kind of the situation it was. They let them kind of rule their own way and do their own thing. And that had all come from the top, from Caesar. Caesar had made these kind of decrees that, the Jews can live in peace with us, and we will live in peace together. But it doesn't mean they like one another, okay? So for this guy to get up and say, and we read, you heard what we read there. For him to get up and say all those kind words about this guy, it really was, something it's almost done in a way that if you're on the outside, you're looking in, you'd be like, I just want to throw up, right? Because this is not, this guy's, he's just blowing smoke. This is not good. And but he does it to make Felix feel good or whatever. And it's buttering them up, I guess, is what you might say. Because he wants to get on his good side. I mean, I guess if you're in his position, I guess you could see that's probably smart of what he did. But basically, he brings 3 accusations. There's 3 really charges against Paul, okay? And the first one was that of insurrection. So he says that Paul is causing these riots. He's stirring up trouble. He's done it all throughout the world, basically, the known Roman-controlled world. Is basically what he was saying. Destabilizing society and everything else. Now, knowing what we've read and what we've learned about Paul previously in the book of Acts, would you agree or disagree with that statement?
They could say that way.
Yeah, they could spin it that way, couldn't they? They could spin it that way. I don't know if you could actually prove that by the evidence of them just saying it, okay? Because it's more like just hearsay, right? In a court of law, there would have to be witnesses, there would have to be concrete evidence, and that in itself is more like a hearsay. And so,
trying to change the status quo.
Yeah.
They consider that an insurrection.
That's right.
Are you sure his name wasn't Biden?
Yeah. So the second accusation that's brought against Paul is that he was this leader of the Nazarenes. And the Tertullus chose the word to describe this group as a sect. Now, interestingly enough, Judaism was an official and protected religion in the Roman Empire. So anything outside of that could be considered not protected or not recognized by the Roman Empire, and therefore could be deemed a sect, and therefore could be a problem. And they termed them the Nazarenes. Although if you look at it, the original disciples, there was only like a couple of the people that were Nazarenes. I don't even know if there was more than maybe 1 or 2. And that's it. Jesus being one of them, right? Jesus from Nazareth, but most of the people were from Galilee or Capernaum or one of these other cities. So they weren't, none of them were necessarily Nazarenes, but this is the sect that this is how the name they gave it. So that was another thing that was kind of like, if they could show that he was this leader of this sect, then, maybe trying to cause some uproar, some new cultic type activities, then perhaps the Romans would have to act on it. The third charge was more or less a charge against their religion, a charge against their faith, and that was that he would defile the temple. He defiled the temple by, they said, him bringing in a non-Jewish person into the temple, a Gentile into the temple. Now, this act would have been a violation of both Jewish and Roman law and would have forced Felix to act. So, if they could prove that, no doubt this is getting Felix's attention and it's causing Felix to, to take note of it. So it's more or less legitimizing their accusations against Paul. So now we're seeing the whole story kind of described to us. Let's move to Paul's defense as we look at verses 10 through 21. Then Paul, after the governor had nodded to him to speak, answered, "Inasmuch as I know that you have been for many years a judge of this nation, I do more cheerfully answer for myself, because you may ascertain that it is no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with anyone, nor inciting the crowd, either in the synagogues or in the city. Nor can they prove the things which they now accuse me. But this I confess to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. I have hope in God, which they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and of the unjust. This being so, I myself always strive to have a conscience without offense toward God and men. Now, after many years, I came to bring alms and an offering to my nation, in the midst of which some Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with a mob nor with tumult. They ought to have been here before you to object if they had anything against me. Or else let those who are here themselves say if they found any wrongdoing in me while I stood before the council. Unless it is for this one statement which I cried out, standing among them, concerning the resurrection of the dead, I am being judged by you this day." Remember, that was Paul, his last words to them before they wanted to destroy him. They wanted to tear him apart whenever the governor, the Roman officers or the commander had to pull in and take him back to the barracks. And finally, that's when they learned about the 40-some guys or folks that wanted to kill him, and they'd taken the oath. And then they had him transferred to Felix authority in Caesarea. So Paul is making his defense. Now, he disputes everything. I don't know if you noticed this, but he disputed every charge against him except for one. One of them he agreed with. Which one was it? The three charges were insurrection, leader of the Nazarenes, and defiling the temple. Which one did he... he disputed them all except for one. He agreed with them. He agreed he was guilty. Do you know which one it was? He agreed that he was associated with the way. He said, with the way, yet I am. So he said, listen, I'm a part of the Nazarene group. Yeah, this sect, they want to call it a sect, the way, I'm a part of that. Yeah, he agreed with that. He said, I'm guilty as charged according to that. In other words, he said, I'm with these guys. And I'm not going to argue about that. But he disputes the other charges against him. And I notice how he does it in a way as a defending attorney would defend their client. And in defending himself, he says, listen, here's what I did. Here's what they have against me. I've been away for many years. I haven't even been here. When I came back, the first thing I did, what did he do? Remember when he came back, what did Peter and the other apostles tell him to do? Remember the whole deal? They said, well, you need to make up for, you need to kind of make a... Yeah. He said, take the oath. Go these four guys that are taking this oath. Join in with them. Do the purification process. Go into the temple. And this is when all this kind of started. He went to the temple. He was doing everything according to the law. He was doing everything according to his culture, according to the way that he had, been instructed to do. And there were people there who could testify that this had happened. He didn't come up. He didn't go in there causing a riot. He didn't go in there causing this tumult. That all came from the Jews that started all this business. Okay? So he said, if I have done something wrong in that, he said, that's what I did. And by the way, there are people who can testify that I did that. And if I didn't do that, if I did some kind of other thing, causing these riots or something else, then where are those people who would stand here as witnesses against me? There are none. We only have it's basically like, here's a guy, he's being accused of these things. And think about it in a court of law today. Think about if we had a court, we had a judge, we have a prosecuting attorney, and we have a defendant. And here's the defendant with his lawyer, defending himself. The prosecutor comes in and says, this is what the charges are against him. The judge says, what's the evidence? Show me the evidence. Oh, we don't have any. What's the witness? You got any witness? No, we don't have any witnesses.
Yep.
Guess what? The judge is going to go, dismissed, right? There's nothing to say here. And other than this one little thing that he said about defiling the temple, that's the only thing that caused Felix to even be curious about, what's going on. So Paul says, listen, if there is anything that I've done wrong, then why aren't there witnesses here to give evidence against me? There are none. He said, listen, the only thing that I'm guilty of is that I proclaim and I state this, out loud to them, to all these folks that are accusing me, that I believe in the resurrection of the dead. That's what Paul said. He said, there's one thing I'm guilty of is that I believe in the resurrection of the dead. He said, by the way, which these folks do too. He said they believe in it too. So, we stand in the same situation because he's talking to Pharisees. Now remember we talked about this last week. Pharisees believed in the afterlife. They believed in the resurrection of the dead. They believed that was going to occur. So, they couldn't argue with that. And yet they're accusing him of these other things, trying to deflect, or like as Pat was saying, change the narrative or, make it look different, let the situation look different. Here's what Paul is saying. Listen, if Jesus had not risen from the dead, there would be no church. Right? The believers would have not gathered. They would not receive the Spirit in Acts chapter 2. They would have not gone out into the world to be His witnesses in Acts chapter 1, verse 8. Paul would have not encountered a risen Christ on the way to Damascus in Acts chapter 9. As Paul wrote to the church in Corinth, if Christ had not been raised, then our preaching is in vain and your faith is in vain. The hope of the resurrection is everything. There are a lot of things about Christianity that are debatable. And there's a lot of things about our faith that are debatable. But the resurrection is not one of them. Okay? It is foundational to everything we believe. I meant, and I forgot to do it, but I was going to bring the little Jenga game. You ever played Jenga? You know what Jenga is? It would have been cool to have that big giant one. I think Don's got one or somebody's got a big giant one. But that would have been cool to have one of those. But you ever play Jenga? You know how Jenga works. You pull out the little block or the little peg, and you can pull them out a lot of times, and you got to set it up on top. And then a lot of times you pull them out and it's fine. It doesn't go anywhere. All those things, when you pull one out and it doesn't fall down, that's one of the things that in Christianity that is debatable. What are some things in Christianity that would be considered, debatable? Can you think of any?
Which Bible to carry?
Okay, there you go. Or how about this one? Whether you carry a Bible at all, right? And nowadays, because some people they have it on their phone. There are people that will argue, well, that's not a Bible. You got it on your phone, that's not a Bible. Bible's supposed to be in a leather-bound cover, Well, is it leather or genuine leather, or is it like faux leather? I mean, what kind of leather is it? Can you not have a paperback Bible? Well, you know what I mean. It's got to be in print. So there are people that will argue over that. So yeah, is that debatable? Obviously that's debatable. That would be one of those pieces that when you pull it out, Easily. Stick it right back up on top. It's not going to cause the thing to fall down. Anything else?
Tongues.
Okay, tongues. Some people debate about that. Hey, I might be of the persuasion that, that was something that was of a particular dispensation of time and it's not used anymore. But I'm not going to say that God can't do the same thing that He did back then now. He can still do that. There's been plenty of times whenever people have had an interpreter to interpret what somebody is saying that in a place where other people didn't know the language and they can speak it. So in certain circumstances, yeah, that's certainly debatable. Anything else?
Even something simple, going to the movies or those kind of things.
Yeah. Movies and watching, different programs on your own television or at your own house.
Dancing. Go right along.
Dancing, yeah. You can just think about it, through, if you kind of raised up in the fundamental independent Baptist background. I don't know if any of you have been raised up like that, but I was kind of raised up in that way. And all of those things, might even be considered, debatable nowadays. There's a lot of different things. As I've learned to pastor people from different backgrounds, and you realize that people don't all think the same way. They don't all view things the same way. And so you have to understand that you gotta worry about getting them to Jesus and letting Jesus sort them all out, right? It's not up to me to figure all that out. It's me just getting them to Jesus and helping them grow to know Jesus, and Jesus sorts them all out and figures all that stuff out. But the resurrection is one of those things that if you pulled it out and said, we don't need this, it's all going to come tumbling down, okay? You can't have the church without the resurrection. You can't have faith without the resurrection. It hinges on everything. If we don't have the resurrection, then we're no better than any other religion in the world. It's the one thing that separates us from all other world religions. We serve a risen Savior, okay? He is alive and well, and He's reigning on the throne today. That's what Paul was guilty of preaching. That's what Paul was standing on his soapbox about. And that's what Paul would never give an inch on. And I don't think we should too, as well. Paul knows that if Jesus rose from the dead, then Jesus is the Messiah. And everything is changed by that one moment in history, including whether or not the Gentiles can come to the table and eat with the Jews in celebration of a holy God. So Paul was standing up for that thought. So as we wrap up tonight, and we'll get into the rest of that next week, and see kind of what Felix's opinion is on the whole matter and how it all turns out. But one thing we should understand is that the resurrection has changed everything. It's changed for the church today. It's what allows us to have the kind of gospel message that we have, that we can carry it to a lost and dying world, and we can share that with the world itself. How many of you have ever seen the movie Frozen 2? Seen it? At least once, right? Queen Elsa in that movie discovers that she is the fifth element spirit. After learning the truth behind her parents' relationship, her grandfather's actions, and her own role in protecting the enchanted forest, Elsa realizes that nothing can ever be the same. She sets aside her crown, and lets her sister Anna become queen, and she moves out of the castle into the forest. Sometimes something so monumental happens that once we realize it's true, the implications affect everything. That's the resurrection of Jesus for Paul. And the resurrection of Jesus should do the same thing for us today. So I ask you, has the resurrection changed you? And just so you can answer, how has it changed you? How has it changed you? Yeah. That's right. That's right. That He can be with you now, in every day, in all circumstances. How else has it changed you?
Gives you hope.
Yeah. It's not an empty hope, right? Hope that the grave is not the end. Hope that there will be better days. Hope that, is all going to be worth it, no matter the trials and tribulations we face here on this earth. It's not going to compare to that which we will receive when we get to face to face with Jesus. So hope, absolutely.
And because of that hope, we can have peace during this trial.
Exactly. We have peace. The hope brings us peace. And I love it. I have an image I was looking at the other day. I made it on my phone, but I haven't shared it yet. But it was the verse of the day, and it was talking about, when we face trials and tribulations. It says that tribulations bring, endurance. Endurance brings hope, and the hope that needs not to be ashamed. In other words, it's going to be, Jesus is never going to let us down. And so that's what the resurrection proves. That Jesus is who He says He was, and that He will always keep His word, and He's alive today, and He's going to make a way for us no matter what. And it guarantees.
You were saying the hope of those things, and unfortunately, people a lot of times use hope like, well, I hope it's going to happen.
Right.
I even just look, hope is an optimistic state of mind that is based on an expectation of positive outcome.
Yeah.
Not,
Right.
hope is going to happen. Hope should be an exciting thing.
And our hope can be concrete and solid because it's anchored in a resurrected Jesus Christ, right? If we didn't have that resurrection of Jesus Christ, our hope would be, man, I hope it all works out, because it would be uncertain, wouldn't it? It would be uncertain. We'd be like, well, I hope that, it is all true, and I hope that I can go to heaven one day. I hope I can see heaven. I hope I'll make it. But that's not our hope. The hope that we have today is anchored in Jesus because He is resurrected. So, I just want to encourage you to let that hope of the resurrection be an anchor for which you can kind of build your life on. It certainly was that for Paul, and that's what he would stand on in the coming, months and years of his life, the remaining months and years of his life, as we will see Paul. It will be anchored in that resurrected Jesus Christ. Okay? Appreciate everybody joining us. If you want to leave a prayer request with us, if you're joining us online, we're going to say goodbye to you in a moment, and we're going to have a time of prayer. And if you would like to have a prayer request shared with us, you can leave it there in the comment section or go to our website, riveroakcc.org/pray. And we will certainly be in prayer for your concerns and pray together, unite together with you in prayer. All right, but until the next time, may the Lord bless you and yours always.